Was he a prophet of peace or a conqueror in disguise? History is not a fairy tale. It is written in ink, but it is often forged in blood. In our modern world, there are two completely different versions of one man. To some, he is the ultimate messenger of mercy, a man who brought light to the dark age of Arabia. To others, he is the most successful military commander in history, a man who transformed a spiritual vision into a geopolitical empire through the edge of a blade. But who was the real Muhammad? Was he a humble shepherd seeking peace, or was he a ruthless general who understood that in a world of wolves, you must become the apex predator to survive? Today, we go beyond the apologies and the attacks. We look at the military genius, the strategic mind, and the bloody reality of 7th century Arabia to uncover the truth. To understand the rise of Muhammad, you first have to understand the environment that forged him. 7th century Arabia was not a place for the weak. It was a lawless desert where your only protection was the strength of your tribe. There were no courts, no police, and no central government. Life was cheap, and blood feuds lasted for generations. Into this chaos, Muhammad introduced a message that threatened the entire economic and social fabric of the Meccan elite. He wasn't just preaching about God, he was attacking the lucrative idol worship business that brought wealth to the Quraysh tribe. In the year 622, Muhammad was a man with nothing. He had been driven out of his home in Mecca. His followers had been tortured, and his message was on the brink of extinction. At this moment, history stood at a crossroads. If Muhammad had chosen the path of silent martyrdom, like many before him, Islam would likely be a forgotten cult buried in the sand. But Muhammad chose a different path. He chose the path of the state. He chose the path of defense. And eventually, he chose the path of conquest. Let's analyze his first major engagement, the Battle of Badr. This wasn't just a religious skirmish. It was a masterpiece of asymmetrical warfare. Imagine 300 men, poorly armed and vastly outnumbered, facing 1,000 elite warriors of the Meccan aristocracy. Muhammad didn't just pray for victory. He engineered it. He secured the water wells, forcing the enemy to fight on his terms. He used the terrain to neutralize the Meccan cavalry. He introduced a revolutionary concept to the Arab tribes, unity under one God, instead of loyalty to one bloodline. He replaced tribal chaos with a disciplined, motivated army that feared nothing, because for them, death was not an end, but a promotion to paradise. But military success brings a different kind of scrutiny. After Badr came the Battle of Uhud, where Muhammad tasted defeat and was nearly killed. This failure taught him a brutal lesson in discipline. He realized that a religious message alone wouldn't win wars. He needed absolute obedience and strategic perfection. Then came the Battle of the Trench. Here, Muhammad showed his genius for unconventional warfare. On the advice of a Persian convert, he dug a massive trench around Medina, a tactic never before seen in Arabia. The Meccan cavalry, the pride of the desert, was rendered useless. Muhammad had moved from being a preacher to being a master of siege warfare and psychological manipulation. Now we enter the darkest and most debated territory. Critics point to the sieges of Jewish tribes in Medina, such as the Banu Qurayza. They point to the execution of traitors and the rapid expansion of the caliphate as proof of a religion of the sword. They ask, can a true man of God also be a man of war? They compare him to Jesus, who allowed himself to be crucified, and they see a fundamental contradiction. Was Muhammad a prophet of peace, or was he a pragmatist who used religion as a tool for empire building? Was he a prophet forced to fight or a warrior hiding mercy? The defenders of history tell a different story. They argue that Muhammad was a survivalist. He lived in a world where peace was nothing more than an invitation to be slaughtered. He didn't invent war. He mastered it to ensure the survival of his people. He was a revolutionary who understood that a moral code is worthless if there is no power to protect it. Every state, every civilization we value today was built on a foundation of force. Is it fair to judge a 7th century leader by the standards of 21st century Geneva Conventions? Look at the conquest of Mecca. This is perhaps the most pivotal moment in his life. After years of war, Muhammad returned to the city that had tried to kill him. Any other commander of that era would have turned the streets into a river of blood. Revenge was the law of the desert. But Muhammad did something unexpected. He offered amnesty. He broke the idols in the Kaaba, but he spared the people who had tortured his friends. Was this an act of pure religious mercy, or was it the ultimate strategic move to unify Arabia under his banner? By choosing forgiveness over revenge, he did what no sword could do. He conquered the hearts of his enemies and turned them into his most loyal soldiers. But the question remains, did the sword change the message? As the caliphate expanded into Persia and Byzantium after his death, the world saw an empire born from a book. But the administration of that empire required more than just verses. It required tax collectors, judges, and generals. Muhammad left behind a law, the Sharia, that was designed to govern a state, not just a monastery. This is why Islam is unique. It is a complete social blueprint. One man gave us a moral compass. The other gave us a map, a compass, and a set of laws to build the road itself. So, what is the final verdict? Was he a warrior who happened to be a prophet, or a prophet who was forced to become a warrior? The answer lies in the results of history. He created a civilization that led the world in science, medicine, and philosophy for 500 years, while Europe was shivering in the dark. He left behind a law that still governs the daily lives of nearly 2 billion people today. To understand Muhammad, you must understand the desert. You must understand that in his world, power was the only currency of survival. He wasn't just preaching about the next life. He was building a world for this one. He understood that ideas without power are just dreams, and power without ideas is just tyranny. He managed to marry the two. Is it possible to be both a saint and a soldier? Can a message of peace truly survive without a shield to guard it? The world is still fighting over the answer to this day. Some see a conqueror who used a blade to force a faith. Others see a liberator who used the blade to protect a vision of justice. But one thing is undeniable. The merchant from Mecca changed the rules of human existence forever. He proved that a single man with an unshakable idea and the courage to fight for it can topple empires and reshape the soul of humanity. Now look at the world today. The echoes of his battles still shape our politics, our borders, and our most deeply held beliefs. Was the sword a necessity of the time, or was it a departure from the message? The comment section is now open. We expect a storm. Be bold, be respectful, but above all, be honest with yourself. Was he a man of peace who was forced into war, or a man of war who used peace as a tactic? Or was he something far more complex, a man who realized that to save a message of light, he had to be willing to walk through the darkness of war? Subscribe to The Unanswered as we continue to peel back the layers of the legends that built our world. The truth is rarely simple, but it is always worth finding.